Hello, No Negative Nancy family. Happy Easter. My most favoriteest day of the whole year. Little plastic things I need to cut those out. Y'all, I have had a worship service in my living room this morning. During this time of pandemic, our church has been doing a recorded video, and we've been posting that, and I listen to that and I enjoy that too. But we've been watching as a family Elevation Church's live services on Sunday mornings. Pastor Stephen Furtick, I followed him for years on social media, but his church, Elevation Church out of North Carolina, does a live service. In fact, he's doing multiple ones today, but the one he had for today, man, it was not your pastel Easter typical. It was an amazing service, and he was talking about expecting a resurrection, and I just can't explain it to you. I encourage you to go watch the replay of it, because he said like normally they do just 2 morning services, but because it's Easter and because I don't know, he just has this passion for this message he had. They're going to replay it several times throughout the afternoon. So go to their YouTube channel or the Elevation Church Facebook page and watch it. It's going to be on live later. But it really inspired some thoughts for me to tell you today. I wanted to get on here and talk about something, because today is a very, very important day. Friday was important, yesterday was important, and today is even more important because today is the day that we recognize and celebrate the fact that Jesus walked out of that grave. And if you're not excited about that, if that doesn't move you, then you need to find a way for that to stir you on the inside. Because I'll be honest with you, there was many years that this day was just a day that we had family get-togethers and we ate some good food and we hunted Easter eggs. And yes, it was great that it was Easter and Jesus rose from the grave on this day, and that's awesome. But it didn't stir me. And I'll be honest, last year was probably the first year that it ever really meant something, to me. But this year it's been even more so. And I've really tried to, since we don't have anywhere else to be, immerse myself in nothing but stuff about this week, all week long. We watched The Passion of the Christ last Sunday to lead us into this week. I've read stuff about what happened each day of the week, what Jesus was doing, what his disciples were doing, and we've talked about that on here. And it's just been I've tried to make this week all about Jesus, because this week Jesus made it all about you. And that's what I thought, that we give it an Easter service or whatever, and now this is I didn't think about it this way, but this is the first Easter Sunday I've not been in church in my whole life. This is the first Easter Sunday I've not went to a church service. And that's just I'm 31 years old, and this is the first time this has happened. And I don't like that, and none of us do. But let me tell you something. If you want to meet with Jesus, you can do it in your house. If you want to have a service, you can have it at home. You don't have to have that building. And so that's what we did in our living room this morning. Like I said, I encourage you to go listen to that. But what I want to talk to you about today is, I titled it, Jesus is Still Rolling Stones. And I feel like it's just so cool because the weather is bad and I just want to tie it all together. And, okay, so first of all, I want to talk about the stone that actually had Jesus up in the grave. Okay, so we're going to look in several of the Gospels and talk about that stone. So we're going to talk about that first. So the first, I'm going to bounce around in the Gospels, but Mark chapter 16, verse 2, very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they, being Mary Magdalene, all the women that were going to see him, they were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, who will roll the stone away from the entrance of the tomb? Okay, they were on their way to go put the spices and do the burial rituals for Jesus. And they were talking amongst themselves along the way. Who's going to move the stone? We're not strong enough. We can't do that. Who's going to do that for us? Let's see here. Let me find I tried to bookmark it so I wouldn't be spending time flipping. let's see, 24. Luke chapter 24, verse 1 and 2. On the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb. Okay, so in one of the Gospels, they were asking who's going to move it. And another one of them, they showed up and it was moved. But the one I wanted to really hone in on, this is why I love that all four of the Gospels tell this from a different perspective, from a different dude's thought process. And that just segue here. That's why it's okay that there's different denominations. That's why it's okay that we worship in different ways, because our brains perceive these things differently and our brains process this stuff differently. Because if everybody was supposed to be the same, then Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, when they told the same stories, then they would sound exactly the same. And the stories and the facts are the same, but they have their own perspective from it. And that's why it's so cool to read through them. But Matthew, this is the one I wanted to talk about today, and the one that I wanted you to try to relate into your own situation. All right, so verse 1, Matthew chapter 28. After the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, this was Sunday, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and, going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. Okay. Mary and them was worried about who's going to roll it out of the way. But then they got there and it was already rolled away. I'm assuming they were anticipating him to still be dead. I would like to think that they were anticipating the resurrection. But even if they weren't, they were still wondering, regardless of what they thought they were going to get when they got there, they were still wondering, who's going to move that big rock out of my way? Who's going to remove the barrier, the heavy thing, out of the way? And it said that a great earthquake came, and an angel of the Lord moved it away. So there had to be a shaking. There had to be something scary. It said it was so scary that these two guards shook and fell out. They became like dead men. They just fell out. Okay? What Stephen Furtick was talking about today on Elevation, on theirs at the Elevation Church, he was talking about the rattling. And this is what got my mind thinking about this. And they come out with a song today, and I don't know if it's anywhere where you can buy it, but as soon as it is, I'm going to have it. Because he talked about the rattling that had to take place for the resurrection. And he referenced Ezekiel in that valley of dry bones. And whenever Ezekiel called out to those bones the way God told him to, that there was a rattling in the bones before they come together. And so the thought that it gave to me, out of all of that, and by what that says about the morning that the stone was rolled away, is that there was a great earthquake. There was a shaking. There was something really intense. There was something even scary happened to roll the stone out of the way for Jesus to walk out, for the good news to come forth, for the deliverance to come forth, for what you were looking for this entire time, for the breakthrough, for the answered prayer, for anything that you're looking for. It's going to take something intense. And it was something supernatural, something that can't be explained. And that's what I talked about yesterday, is that, there's a lot of things, a lot of deliverance comes by ways of us not understanding, by ways of us not getting it, by ways that our natural minds can't make sense of it. It didn't make sense to Mary Magdalene and her girls that an angel and an earthquake was going to come to move that stone out of the way for her. So when they got there, they could walk in and see that he had not only got up and walked out of there, but he folded up his bed, his grave clothes, and left them laying there as if he had never been there. It's not always going to make sense. God does things in so many unconventional ways. He does things that we can't imagine, so we can't even anticipate that that's going to happen because it doesn't make sense to us. It's not predictable. Even though Jesus told them over and over and over again that he was here to die and then resurrect on the third day. Even though he told them that repeatedly, this was still so unpredictable. They didn't even believe that, when he said it is finished, they thought everything was over. They thought that he had died. All the disciples are sitting at home crying, yet here goes the girls to do their job. I don't know that it was their job. I say that, but I don't even know that but I'm just assuming that because that's what they were doing. They were going to keep, do the rituals for the body. Part of their burial traditions, I'm assuming. And something totally unexpected happened when they got there. Something totally unexpected happened to those guards when that angel appeared after that earthquake. And then the thing that's cool to me is that the angel that came down and rolled that stone out of the way, he perched himself on top of it. So the angel, where's it at? Let's see. Verse 2 of Matthew chapter 28. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. I wonder why that angel sat down on that stone. Even he wanted to have a front row seat to see what Jesus was going to do. Even he was excited to see the amazing thing that it was going to be for Jesus to walk out after what Friday had been and how silent Saturday had been. He wanted to see Jesus walk out of there. And so that makes me think about our lives. What stone is keeping you shut out? What stone is keeping you down? What stone is killing you? What stone is breaking you? What stone is keeping you from living your best life? What stone is keeping you from fully dedicating to Jesus, fully selling out for him? Everybody's got their own struggles in this season right now. And, this quarantine, this COVID situation has kept us out of church today. And I know that's probably got a lot of people sad. We were intending to have a drive-in service today at our church. But because of the threat of tornadoes, we can't have it. So we just did a video sermon. And it made me really sad. But then when I heard this message on TV this morning, and I got to thinking about the rattling and the stone that had to be moved, and how the shaking and the intense and the scary situation that had to happen to roll that stone out of the way for Jesus to walk out and to do what he came to do, to fulfill his will, it made me think about how bad the weather is today. There's threats of tornadoes all over the state of Alabama today. Mississippi too. They've been in Louisiana, Texas, all of that. And I wonder if this is just the rattling, if this is just the intense situation, if this is the scary situation where God is trying to move his way across. I don't think that it's coincidental that it's on Easter Sunday. I don't think that it's, you could think, oh, maybe it's Satan trying to keep people away from church on the day that maybe they were going to have the drive-in service. I don't think that. I think it's Jesus making his point that on this Easter Sunday, 2,000 years ago, there was an earthquake on that day to roll the stone out of the way, to bring deliverance to the entire humanity, so that we have the option to not only, it's not just for heaven and hell. It's not just for that. And that's what we talk all the time, and that's how we get people saved, because we don't want them to go to hell. And that still should be pulling at our heartstrings. We should still be so, passionate about not letting the people that we know or even strangers to go to hell. That should still matter. But that is not the only reason that he went through what he went through. He went through that so we could have a relationship with him. He went through that so that we could know him. He did that so we could fellowship with him. He went through the pain not just to keep us out of hell, but to let us to have and enjoy our life. Let's see. I'm flipping over. I got to read it. John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. He wants you to enjoy your life. He wants you to not just look forward to the fact that you're going to go to heaven one day. Oh, it's terrible. And that's the thing. We got so many Christians that are living their life like, oh, if Jesus would just come back, if I could make it to the other side of glory. No! That's not what he died for. He didn't die so you could be a mopey Christian. He died so that you could not only have this life, but have peace despite your circumstances, have joy despite the fact that Satan is throwing all he's got at you and your family, and that you can bring some people with you. Mopey Christians do not bring people into the kingdom. In fact, if you walk around sad-faced and frumpy and upset and negative all the time, then nobody's going to want the Jesus that you have. Because the world gives you plenty of temporary happiness. They give you drugs, they give you alcohol, they give you sex, they give you lust, they give you money, they give you stuff. There's plenty of the things that the world can give you to give you temporary satisfaction, temporary highs. We've got to show the world that we've got that not only in eternity, but we've got that now. And we've not been doing that. Jesus died so that we can have our life and enjoy our life and make it so dang contagious that the world is knocking the door down saying, please help me understand what you have. I want that too. But all we're doing is still sitting and looking at the stone in front of us saying, well, I don't know who's going to move that out of the way. I can't move it. It's too big for me. I guess I'll just sit here behind it and I know I've got hope for one day, but I can't move that stone. So you're stuck in Saturday. You're stuck in that tomb on Saturday. You're stuck in the quiet. You're stuck in the faithlessness that Satan has convinced you you'll always live in. That stone's always going to be there. That stone will never move. You'll never move beyond this state of your life, this season of your life. You're going to be stuck right here behind this stone because that's too much for you to move. That calling God put on your life, that's too far of a fetch for you to be able to attain. That person that you know is going to bust hell wide open, they're too far gone to change. So there's no reason for you to even witness to them. This is how it's always going to be. That is a lie from the pit of hell. Because guess what? God didn't quit rolling stones out of the way when Jesus walked out of the tomb. That's not the last time that he rolled a stone out of the way. He is still in the business of rolling stones. And Lauren Daigle come out with a song a year or so ago. I'm not even sure when it came out, but I loved it. But it's called Still Rolling Stones. And I love it because it's talking about this very thing. And when that whole CD come out, this was my favorite song on it. I downloaded it because You Say was on there. But I really love this song. And it's all at once I came alive. This beating heart, these open eyes, the grave let go, the darkness should have known, you're still rolling stones. He's still rolling stones. And it doesn't always make sense. It's very rarely predictable, and it may not come in the way that you see it, but you need to anticipate it. And that starts with you believing that God is who he says he is. That is with you starting with the fact that you have more of a responsibility as far as having a relationship with God than going to church once a week, sitting through a 30 or 45-minute sermon and never cracking your Bible open and never saying a prayer unless it's grace or unless you're going through an absolute emergency in your life. You have more responsibility for moving your stone out of the way. You may not can physically move it. You may not can do anything about that situation, but you can do something about what's going on inside of you. You can't get rid of the anxiety. You can't get rid of the worry. You can't get rid of the depression, but you can feed yourself. You can feed your spirit. You can feed your soul. What God says about him, about you, about his anointing, about his providence, about how he protects and how he provides. And you can believe what he says. And he will meet you right there where you are. And he will come through for you. It may not look like you think. Lord knows I know that better than anybody. But you have got to believe first that he can. And I want you to go to YouTube and look up Rattle, the song by Elevation Worship. They sang it in the sermon today. And it was so powerful. And it's posted, I don't know that you can download it on any Apple Music or any of that yet, but it is on YouTube because I looked it up before I got on here. And it talked about I'm trying to find the words too. I wanted to look up the lyrics and just tell y'all what it says. But the very first part of the song was Saturday was silent. And we talked about that. Oh, I was trying to pull it up. I've messed it up. But anyways, it talked about, this is the song. This is the praise that made a dead man walk again. Open the grave, I'm coming out. I'm going to live. I'm going to live again. This is the sound of dry bones rattling. And he referenced Ezekiel so much in that. Because I think that there's power in that story too. But you think about Ezekiel and the dry bones. You think about when Jesus resurrected Lazarus. You think about when he walked out himself. You think about all these situations and all these miracles that happened. It all came. Jesus yelled at Lazarus. And that's what Pastor Stephen Furtick was talking about. He said, Lazarus, come out of there. And, you know, there was an earthquake before Jesus, the tomb rolled, the stone rolled away from the tomb. It's just, there is something powerful in a major movement, and God can do it. Since when is impossible to God? Since when is what constraints we function under, the things that we understand, since when is that what holds God back? That's you putting God in a box that has nothing to do with who he is. And that's because you don't really know who he is, or you don't have faith that the word actually says who he is. You got to do some studying on the character of God. And it just was really interesting to me, because I have so many dreams for this life I have so many things that I want to do, and I don't know how. I don't even know how to go about doing them. I don't have the intelligence. I don't have like the ability to speak it out. I don't have, like, there's so many things I want to do. And I'm like, God, why have you put this desire in my heart? Why have you put this vision in me to want to do these things that I am so incapable of doing? And today he told me, because it's not you doing it. What's impossible for you, what's impossible for man, is not impossible for him. And so I was so mad yesterday that there was going to be these thunderstorms today, because it kept us all out of going to our drive-in church services. But I kind of love it today, because maybe God is just trying to shake this earth. And just shake a revival, shake a movement of him, shake something that's impossible in our minds, totally unpredictable in our minds. Maybe he could shake things up so hard today that our entire lives are changed for the better. What if it was gone tomorrow? What if all this coronavirus, we woke up and it was gone? He could do it. If he had worked whatever, if he wanted to work out of this, he could do it. Do you believe that? Do you believe that God could do that? Do you believe he could rid the entire earth of coronavirus tomorrow if he wanted to? Yeah, he could. I'm not saying he will, but he can. What if he did? And what better day to do it, you know, the day we're celebrating the resurrection, you know? But the resurrection didn't make sense. They watched him die. They watched him get beat. They watched all of this. They watched the stone roll in front of it. There was guards there. They seen all of this happen. So when Mary and those women just showed up and the tomb is out of the way, these guards are laying over here. They look like they're dead. And they walk in there and there's these folded up death clothes laying there. That didn't make sense. And they freaked out. That's what it says. And the angel was still sitting there. He's still hanging out. I would love to have had a bird's eye view of like what he had going on there. He's sitting on this stone. He gets to watch Jesus walk. He moves the stone so Jesus can walk out. He watches this happen. Then he sees Mary and them come up, and he gets to see them have this intense aha moment of, oh my gosh, he's not here. Where is he? And then he gets to tell them, don't be afraid. In fact, there you go. Verse 5 of Matthew chapter 28. Do not be afraid, for I know that you're looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here. He is risen just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples he has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you in Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you. That angel had a job to do. But it was a really cool, thing to see unfold. What really cool thing is God trying to let you see unfold? What really cool thing is he asked you to do? What job? I don't know how strong this angel was. I'm sure this wasn't, I don't know if it was hard for him to move the stone out of the way. I guess that's a question I can ask when I get to heaven one day. But I wonder if when God sent this angel down there and he says, hey, go move this stone out of the way and wait on those ladies and tell them the good news. I wonder if he was like, whew, I need a really big earthquake, God, because that stone's pretty heavy. You know what I mean? That's kind of silly to think about, but that angel had a job. And it was pivotal in spreading the good news that Jesus was risen. God has callings like that for us. It may not seem like a really big deal. This angel didn't resurrect Jesus. All he did was move the rock out of the way and sit on it and wait. Maybe all you do is clean the church. Maybe all you do is change the light bulbs. Maybe all you do is, maybe you sing in the choir. Maybe you keep children's church or the nursery. Maybe you think what you're doing doesn't matter. But let me tell you something. The people who do the kids stuff at my church are monumental in the next generation. My kid knows, and it's not because we don't talk about Jesus at home. We clearly do. But the way that it is presented to him at church, he knows so much about the Bible because of the people serving at the church. My husband is on the trustee board at our church, and he does the stuff like changing the light bulbs, or when the toilets don't flush good, he has to go and tinker with them, those kinds of things. You take that stuff for granted. You take the people who run the music equipment. Because let me tell you something. Me, the preacher, and the preacher's wife were trying to hook up a soundboard to some speakers earlier this week, trying to prepare for the drive-in service before we knew it was going to be canceled. And we couldn't get any of that figured out. It doesn't matter what your role is. You may not think it's a big deal. You may think that it's small in comparison to what's going on in the big picture. Maybe you're not the preacher on the platform. Maybe you're not the musician. Maybe you're not the person standing front and center that everybody's listening to. But I promise you, the role that you have to fulfill matters in this grand scheme of things, of the word going out, of the gospel going out, and souls being reached. Because if you didn't do your job, then the other people who are standing in front of everybody wouldn't be able to do theirs as good. Or maybe not at all. So don't ever take something that God has asked you to do lightly. Don't ever take a calling he's placed on your life lightly. And you may not think that it makes a difference. You may not think that it's reaching anybody, but I promise you, it does. And it is. Because if he called you to it, he is using you. Not only is he using that obedience in your life, but he's using it to others around you. And maybe that's monumental in moving the stones in your life. Because we all have them. We have financial stones. We have health stones. We have relationship stones. We have mental illness stones. We have career, job stones. We have stones of all kinds. And you may think that your stone is too big to be moved, but maybe you just need an earthquake to get it out of the way. And we do a good job of avoiding that stuff, avoiding the scary, avoiding the intense. But maybe the intense and the scary is what's required to move that stone. What's required for you to let go of whatever it is you're hanging on to. What is required for you to be able to put down whatever it is you've been holding on to all this time so you can receive what he's trying to give you. I've learned that you can never hang on to what you have and grab a hold of what you're going to get and then let go. It's never close enough for you to do that. You have to let go of whatever's up going on over here before you can grab hold of what's next with God. He's never going to let you have both. You're not going to have your cake and eat it too. You're going to have to let go of the past. You're going to have to let go of the shame, let go of the guilt, let go of the condemnation, let go of the habits, let go of whatever it is God's convicting you to let go of, so you can grab hold of what's coming with Him, to His promises, to His answers, to His breakthroughs, to His peace, to His joy. You've got to let go of some of that stuff. You've got to put it down. But too many of us are stuck hanging on to this because that's all we know. And all we're doing is hanging on to that stone. We're begging God to move out of the way. Every time He tries to move it out of the way, we stand in front of it and say, no. This is where I'm comfortable. It makes me sad, but I'm comfortable here. Understand that sometimes He needs an earthquake to shake your situation up just enough to bring you the deliverance that you're craving, that you're praying for, that you're begging for. So don't avoid that. And don't let Satan feed you the lie that he quit doing that. Oh yeah, Old Testament miracles. Oh yeah, Lazarus and Jesus. He resurrected that situation. He can resurrect your situation. He can resurrect you, the life you've been living. It doesn't matter how long you've been stuck in whatever it is you're stuck in, whatever pattern, what situation you've gotten yourself into, He can resurrect it. It may not look like you think. Because that's what Pastor Stephen was talking about today with Lazarus. He said, Mary and Martha were like, this is what you should have done. Where were you? He's been dead for days. Like, he's stinking in there. And now you're saying, oh, it's going to be fine? Where were you? Should have been here when we called you. We told you this was going to happen. It didn't make sense to them. He was just, and that's what Pastor Stephen Furtick said today. He said he knew what was happening. He knew that Lazarus was going to die before he got there. He was just trying to show them something else about himself. He was just trying to show them a preview to resurrection, because he was going to do it for himself here in the near future. Sometimes He's trying to show you something about Himself. He's trying to show you some of how much He loves you. He's trying to show you just how in control He is in these times where you need these intense, scary moments before He'll knock that stone out of your way. Before He'll crumble that mountain. Before He'll let you move on to the next level with Him. Because you may not can handle what's coming next if you can't handle this first. So I guess what I'm trying to tell you today is that He didn't quit doing miracles when the Bible was summed up. He's not waiting to do miracles again when He comes back. Like, He still does them now. And He can work one in your life. If you've had salvation, that's a miracle in itself. If you're a child of God, that's a miracle in itself, because you didn't deserve it, neither did I. Treat it as such. We treat it as things that we're entitled to. That's not true. It's a miracle. It's a miracle if you have a happy marriage or a child, or, half of you it may be a miracle you didn't go to jail at some point in your life before you got yourself figured out. It may be a miracle that you didn't wind up dead on the side of the road somewhere because of the decisions you were making in your life. Treat it as such. God still does miracles all the time. But usually, like in this case, there was an earthquake, there was a shaking. Ezekiel, Lazarus, there was an intense moment. Ezekiel didn't run. That's what's interesting to me. I would have freaked out if I'd have been standing there and He says, talk to these bones and tell them to get up. First of all, I don't know that I'd even would have done it, because that seems crazy. But even if I would have, and then it started working, I don't know what I would have done. Like, I'd have been scared. I don't know how I would have reacted if I would have saw a man I know had been dead for 4 days walk out of a tomb. I don't know what I would have done if I'd have walked up and saw an angel perched on a rock saying Jesus was resurrected. Like, I don't know how these people felt in these situations. But it was something so intense, so unpredictable, so illogical that happened to get the deliverance, to get the big, amazing miracle in their lives. That's poured over into ours too, because it's recorded for us to read. Because we need that too. We need to know. He didn't stop being that God. God hasn't changed. He's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. That's biblical. He has not changed. Why do we treat him like, oh, miracles expired, when the New Testament concluded? What? No. He is the same God. We need to treat him as such. So, with that, I'm just going to leave you with, I hope that you've taken some time today to really praise God for the fact that the resurrection happened. I hope you take the time to really think about what that means. I hope you've spent some time as a family, worshiping God this weekend. I hope that you have let your heartstrings be tugged by how monumental this really is. But I want to leave you with the thought that if you have a stone in your life that you've been trying to move and that you can't get out of the way yourself, then please don't give up on the fact that God is still in the business of rolling stones. He can move yours just like he moved these. Just expect it. May not come in a predictable way. It may not come in the time frame that you want it to, but it will come. And you need to have faith on it because he's not changed. So with that, I'm going to get us out of here. I'm going to close this out in prayer, and then we'll get out of here for the day. And you can enjoy the rest of your day. So let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for this holiest of days. Lord, just help us to really take a minute and meditate on how holy and sacred this day is. And Lord, just come to you in thanksgiving and praise your name for what it means for us, and the fact that we can now come to you, and that you can live in our hearts, and that we can have this intimate, personal relationship with you, Lord. Help us, Lord, to seek that above all else, to put you first in our life, and to put you first in our situation, and to believe that you are who you say you are, and the word says exactly everything about you is true. Lord, just help us to understand that the stones that are placed in our life, they may be big, they may be scary, they may be immovable from our standpoint, but Lord, help us to understand that nothing is impossible for you, and that you didn't stop working miracles, that you didn't stop showing up in situations and working things out just because, Jesus was resurrected and that's where it ended. Lord, that's just where you started. Lord, just help us to see that you're still working miracles, that you'll still move in our situation. Help us to have faith. Help us to have confidence and boldness in the fact that you are still who you were back then, and that you haven't changed. Lord, help us not to lose faith. Help give us encouragement and motivation when we need it, and help us just to live our lives as a light for you. Lord, just be with us as we go through the remainder of the day. Keep us safe as these storms move through. Forgive us of our sins and where we failed you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, y'all, I'm going to get out of here, but I will see y'all sometime tomorrow. So love y'all. Be happy. Do good. And happy Easter.